New segments seem to be appearing through ballot initiatives that blur party lines and are showing that America has the ability to break away from the control of the two-party system and vote for what they believe in rather than simply toting the party line. The sudden surge for reinforcement of reproductive rights on Tuesday was immense. In 5 states, California, Kentucky, Montana, Michigan, and Vermont, voters either rejected an anti-abortion measure or added abortion rights to their state constitution. Just months earlier, Kansas, a conservative state with a history of intense anti-abortion activism, shocked the country by voting to protect state abortion rights by a significant margin. These stories were cited in a previous video leading up to the election, so it was important to me that we follow up on those topics and stayed informed on the poll results. So these outcomes are more significant than many people realize. The people have relied on political parties to defend them and to impose change based on partisan lines established by the major political parties. With the reversal of Roe v. Wade, people finally realized that they may need to make some of these choices for themselves. The latest poll result tell us something that is majorly impactful, especially for third-party voters who don't cleanly adhere to party lines. The results of direct democracy and not party loyalty has helped the 5 previously mentioned states stand up for what the majority believes is right, rather than fighting amongst themselves over party loyalty. To cite an international example of this same type, we shift across the globe and look at Ireland. Their 8th Amendment, in place since 1983, recognized fetal rights and banned abortion. After the passing of that amendment, Ireland was subject of international criticism and chastisement for violating women's human rights. The country insisted that they were upholding what was democratically established by their people. Behind the scenes, though, there was a similar shift taking place as to what we saw in the polls on Tuesday. The Irish people's views had changed. One leading cause of this shift was the death of a young woman who was denied an abortion following an incomplete miscarriage, and she died from the sepsis that resulted. In Ireland, people were traveling to other countries to procure abortion treatments, similar to how we travel state to state here in the US. Thousands of their citizens sought aid and traveled to Britain each year. Medications were also taken to prevent pregnancies, though those were outlawed as well. And while the situations are certainly not identical, there are many parallels here that are truly undeniable. What the US is seeing in a post-Roe v. Wade world are eerily similar to the examples from our Irish counterparts. In 2018, Ireland's people found the change they were looking for as reproductive rights were restored. This campaign relied heavily on stories about real people who needed abortions for life-saving and legitimate medical purposes. The stories that they focused on delivered the message that as an individual, you may not be pro-abortion, but that doesn't mean that you can't be pro-choice. This is exactly what the third parties here in America have been trying to make voters understand for decades. So make a note. If you support female reproductive rights, so do the third parties. Those messages delivered by the people to change the laws in Ireland were very similar to those themes established in Kansas this year, where reproductive rights were protected. As much as people may not want to admit it or discuss it, there are many examples medically and criminally where abortion may not only be desired, but necessary. That's why seeing this initiative as a standalone ballot concept rather than a part of party politics is so important. By taking these issues directly to the voters, we can establish a true democratically determined result. No one is adhering to party lines and trying to uphold the fullest notion of winning against their opponent. They're simply reading the proposal, voting as their hearts and minds desire, and we're seeing the true outcomes. Kansas was the first example of this, and now the 5 states from Tuesday have followed. All right, so my perspective, Roe v. Wade was a landmark case for many reasons. It guaranteed a woman the right to choose regarding reproductive rights. The appealing of that case was devastating, but really only because of the human rights implications in my mind. No person should ever need the government at any level to dictate what medical procedures can and can't be administered. Any healthcare decision that is made is a choice that is made between that person, their family, and their doctor. The government has no right to even be included in that type of conversation. For example, if you want to seek chemo treatments for cancer, or to simply choose to be comfortable and spend your remaining time at home, The government shouldn't have any say in that decision. If you want to go to a doctor for an abortion procedure because there are threats to your well-being if you deliver, again, the government should have no say in that conversation. Reproductive rights are a basic human requirement. Roe v. Wade being overturned left the power to decide abortion law in the hands of each state. Honestly, the states shouldn't have the right to dictate those decisions either. There shouldn't be any law at any level that interferes with a person's right to make medical decisions for themselves and their families. If you're willing to go to bat for your constitutional right to bear arms, or for freedom of speech, or for freedom of religion, then you should be willing to go to bat for a person's right to make their own medical decisions. That being said, a quick side note here. Freedom of religion doesn't mean that you get to impose your religion onto others. Freedom of religion means we are constitutionally guaranteed the right to practice whatever religion we so choose. The same goes with freedom of speech. We are allowed to speak up for our beliefs, even if they're outlandish or asinine. Freedom of speech doesn't mean we need to be nice or that we need to agree with each other all the time. It means we need to understand others are going to have views that counter our own. And side note. While ballot direct initiatives aren't perfect, they are the true democracy that this nation needs. Some states don't even allow voters to exercise this right to amend the state constitution, which seems like should be illegal. The states decide what the Constitution says and gives the people no right to vote on said Constitution unless done so through the political masters that control the Constitution already. That sounds suspicious. Also, the wordings of ballot direct initiatives can often be convoluted and written in complex language, which needs to be addressed. Those things aside, direct democracy is true democracy. We should be supporting more ballot initiatives and less party lines here in America. So, call to action. All those things considered, let's open the forum. As always, think freely, discuss openly.